Good evening.
Yo.
Hello.
Or afternoon.
Stefan in the house.
To be fair, the weather is getting a bit lighter here in the evenings now, isn't it? Like normally it's 4 o'clock, it's getting dark. 31st of March, clocks change, don't they? I believe.
26th, isn't it? I think.
I thought it's 31st.
I think it's 26th.
Huh?
That's what it says on Google Calendar, so I don't know.
Oh, maybe. Yeah, check.
Hopefully it's soon.
It snowed again today where I am.
It is the 26th, mate. You're right. That's my bad.
That's how much I look at Google Calendar.
Ignore me. How is everyone? Got a small group today. I was enjoying the sun. Right, so today we're going to do a little bit of adulting to start with. Basically, I've spent a lot of time auditing businesses recently, and one thing that gets missed, and the biggest focus that I've found, is that people always default to sales and acquisition when they're trying to increase their bottom line and revenues. And well, that's a natural instinct. What we have to remember is and the thing I'd always prefer to do is, if you look at your business like a bucket, if you've got a lot of holes in the bottom and you're filling it up with water, it's a much harder task to keep filling the bloody thing back up, because there's multiple factors to this, but that's known as churn rate. Churn rate is the amount of people dropping off out of your business. And there's a few key variables as adults and business owners that we need to kind of really start looking into and making sure we're taking note of, so that we can make sure that each element is taken care of. So if I was to look to invest in a company, there's a few key metrics that I would look at to start with. And also when I'm auditing the company, the sort of things I start looking at to make sure they're healthy and what trajectory they're on. Are they growing? Are they shrinking? Where they like to stay? And I bet a lot of you that have been trading for a while have found that you tend to plateau at certain revenue levels. I'd be interested to know in the chat if you found that, like if you've been running for a business for a little while, maybe a year or two, that you hit certain revenue levels and you struggle to get above or below them. That's typically because of a couple of factors: your sales philosophy, LTV, churn rate. So I'll go through each one now, but the thing we're going to focus on today is churn rate and why it's so important. And this is the first thing that I tend to look at. And if you solve people dropping off and you reduce your churn rate, the percentage of churn rate, your revenue will go through the roof without having to increase any sales acquisition. So then when you then do focus on that, what we call is your hypothetical revenue max changes. Anyway, I'll share my screen and start going into a bit of details. But there we go. So I'm going to do my absolute best to make my handwriting half legible. So we'll focus on churn. Now, there's going to be 6 key numbers or variables or metrics that I want you guys to do. You should already know inside your business. So like I said, if I was going to sit down with a business that I was going to buy, or I'm going to look at the health of, these are the things I'd ask. Number 1 would be current clients. Number 2 is new sales per month. Number 3 would be current rev. Number 4 would be your price that you charge for your service. We're just going to assume one price for the time being, because obviously if we start changing things over, we'd have to look at average price, but the price would be your average price that you're selling. If you've got multiple services or whatever, you'd look at the average. 5 would be your churn rate. And 6 would be your LTV. LTV is your lifetime value. Right. If you look at these, most people know how many current clients they've got, what their new sales are they get per month, what their current revenue is. That's normally what most people focus on. Everyone knows what price they're charging, I hope. And then quite often people don't know what their churn rate is and they have no idea what their LTV is. And these things are super, super important for you guys to know because it gives you a really good understanding of the health of your business and how we can manipulate things before we even look at increasing revenue. So I'm going to give you like a hypothetical scenario just so you can start plugging your own numbers in so you can figure this stuff out. Like, let's say, for example, you don't know what your churn rate is or your LTV. This is how you work it out. You put a line under this. So let's just say, for example, you've got a very successful business, a coaching business that's got 250 clients. I've made the numbers, I'm trying to make the numbers a little bit easier, and I'll try and do the math. Let's say you got 100 new sales per month. Let's say we've got, can you read this, by the way? Hopefully you can. Let's say you've got £50,000 per month rev. And then price per customer of £200 per customer. And then, like we said, we don't know what our churn rate is or our LTV. So if you know what your how many people per cancel per week is, you can start figuring this out. So what we want to find out is if we carry on trading for a period of time, are we at our max level or are we growing or are we declining? So I'm trying to keep this as quick as possible, don't bore you all to death. But basically, a hypothetical max is if all of these variables stay constant, you will hit a level of business that you end up plateauing. And this is when you need to look at current clients, new sales, price, and churn rate. These are all the things that would then adjust this. So to figure out a hypothetical max, let's say, for example, in this situation, his coach loses about 13 people per week, which is roughly, give or take, 50 clients per month. So if they lose 13 per week, that's roughly 50 clients per month. That will give you, we can figure this out. So to figure out your churn rate, we do 50 divided by the current amount of clients, which is 250, which is 20%. See, did easy math. Even I can do that. John's laughing in the background. So we now know that our churn rate is 20%, which is very, very high. So in this instance, I'd be looking at this company saying, well, before we even look at building up your sales, we've got a big leaky bucket here. And for us to keep trying to pour new sales in, you're fighting a losing battle. What we want is to plug that hole and then enable sales to increase. So if I so if I'm probably going to lose back to where I was. You swipe across. Oh yeah, I'm just learning this little pad here. So we now need to figure out what our LTV is, our lifetime value. So now we've got churn. Like I said, if I write this back on here again, 20%. We can figure out our LTV, which is our lifetime value per client. That basically is the number, the amount of money we earn every time we sign a client up on average, which is like the holy grail. Every business needs to be optimizing for LTV. So we'll talk about ways of extending that in a bit, but LTV is the real metric that we have, because that gives us more margin for marketing, that gives us more profit per client. Like that means we don't have to keep signing up as many clients to make as much money, yeah, etc. For example, just to give you a good analogy, if every single client that you came on that you earn £1 million LTV from, you'd only need a couple of clients and you'd be set. But it doesn't work that way. Anyway, so to figure out our LTV, we have our price per client, which we said, if we go over here, I'm just going to show them on here. We've got £200 here. So our price per client is £200. So you can plug in your own numbers and then you divide it by 20%, which would be 0.2. equals £1,000 LTV. Yeah, that's right. So that basically means this person's business, for every client that they take on, based on the current numbers, they make £1,000 per client. Fine. Now we've really started to get a really good idea of the health of the business. Now, what we can now do is figure out the hypothetical max. So we know that we said on this other page here, what's across, their current revenue is £50,000. So we can start figuring out whether or not they're going to be increased. Based on these numbers, we can see if they're going to carry on increasing or actually decreasing, or they're constant. Now, because this company, from the numbers that I put down, is signing up 100 people per month, they're only using 50, their sales acquisition is actually very high. They just have a very big leaky bucket. So we can see from here, if we do 100 new sales, which is what they do per month, and average there with their LTV of £1,000, I made this math really easy. We know they will cap out at £100,000 per month. So if they change nothing, their revenue will continue to grow, because right now their sales acquisition is so high. They're going, yeah, we're growing, great. But what's going to happen is the curve is going to do this. So if they're at 50K now, this is 100K, it will cap out here. Now, a lot of people's instinct would be, well, okay, we'll just increase sales acquisition, but their sales acquisition is pretty good already. They've actually got a decent amount of signups. The problem they've got from this is their churn rate is high. They've got a 20% churn rate, which anything above 10%, I would say, is very high, especially in a coaching-based business or something like that. So instead, just to give you a bit of an idea, to just like wrap this up, if this company, rather than try to increase their revenue, their sales acquisition right now, the amount of people they're selling to, just halve their churn rate, which means they either kept them on an extra, they double the amount of time they're on, then watch what happens to their revenue. So literally same math again. You do, if their churn rate went down to 10%, you can work out the LTV would be their £200 they charge per month over this time 0.1. Oh, I've made the math nice and easy, which gives them £2,000 LTV. So that means just by halving the churn rate, the rate at which they drop off, their LTV, their lifetime value per client, doubles. They've instantly doubled their revenue per client, which actually comes with a whole host of other benefits, because it's always more costly to acquire a new customer, all these other aspects. So they're actually more profitable as well. It's not just double their revenue, actually increases their profit significantly too. Now, with that, I'm trying to keep this as clean as possible. Their hypothetical max now would be 100 times by 2,000, which gives them a hypothetical max of 200K. So this company will continue to grow if they halve their churn rate at the rate they're on with no extra sales to £200,000 a month. That's plateau. Absolutely profound. So before we even consider looking at sales acquisition and putting things up, if you've got an established business, really look at churn rate first, customer fulfillment, and making sure that your service is shit hot, because it's crazy just how much effect that will have on your bottom line. And like I said, I haven't even gone into details here, which might be a video for another time, but when you, like I said, when you start looking into profitability, if you take into the amount of time, the amount of cost you have to do a sales call, well, for one, you've got to produce content, then you've got to get someone on a sales call, you then got to onboard someone, you've then got to train that person. That's all very costly. So the cost per client, the cost per acquisition, we call that CAC, is high per customer. So if you're not having to sign as many people up, your profit margins go up because your cost per acquisition goes down. So I know this is all like quite mathsy and probably a little bit boring for some of you, but what I'm trying to say is just understanding these basic numbers will give you a really good idea of the health of your business and where it's going, and make you understand where I have so many people come to me going, Ellie, I've been stuck on £20,000 a month for the last 2 years. Like, yeah, because your churn rate's set and your sales acquisition set. Yes, you can start adjusting price, and yes, you can start adjusting sales volume. But first, fix churn. It's the easiest thing to fix normally. Normally, when I look at a business, I'm like, well, there's multiple things we can do, and we'll talk about these in a little bit. But I just wanted to use numbers because we haven't done this for a little while, and I know most people don't like them, but this is super important. And this is kind of back of napkin kind of math that everyone should be able to do in their business. And does anyone have any questions on that before we move on? Because that might be a little bit, it's quite a lot to take in. I've gone through it quite quickly. Hold your hand up, or put your screen on if you've got any questions, and I'll talk it through.
No questions, Elliot. Just like that's made so much sense. Like not been in business forever, but the last 3 or 4 years, always trying to just chase the acquisition of clients and never really knowing what the bottom line looks like or how easy it is to work that out. I know my retention numbers, but when you work it out, that's simply literally like fag packet maths. It's so simple.
Yeah.
It's so simple, and that's just made me go, oh, I know where I am with what I need to target and what I don't need to target.
Brilliant.
So simple. So thank you.
You're very welcome. Yes, Stefan? Unmute that man.
So you're probably already going to get to the next part, but how do you resolve it then? Because me and James have done loads with retention, but every month I still get a reasonable amount leave.
Look, there's going to be a level at which you can optimize that. I've never met a business that has a 0% churn rate. That's an infinite business that would be insane. And what you can do is try and optimize it as best you possibly can. And like I say, there will be a point at which you do need to work on sales and acquisition. But what I'm saying is work on this in a big way. And obviously James is very good at this as well. So
it's a bit like, for example, you, Stefan, we looked at all your sales calls and then, got to the point where you said, oh, I'm getting on the sales calls with students. So it's like, you can only keep students on for a certain amount of time. And you said that they were not checking in, they were crap clients. So to fix that problem, it's like, stop going after students and then work on, obviously what we did as well, we increased your price point slightly, which means people are more invested. But there's so many different things, like you can do. And it comes in nicely to, so I actually went round to my landlord's house on Friday afternoon for coffee. And he basically owned and started one of the biggest catering companies in the UK, and actually started onto contracts with the government. And he told me his story, and he basically said he moved to London because he wanted to, he thought London was better, people with more money, you've got all these people come over from different countries. He then basically decided to hire a PA, a small office, and a phone and a proposal book. And he basically said, there's a few catering companies at the time, and he was like, how am I going to basically stand out from the crowd, and how am I going to win business over other people? Same as like an online coach, right? There's loads of coaches in the industry. How am I going to be different? Okay. He basically would get an inquiry come through. He would put the phone on speaker. He would have his PA listen to the whole conversation of what the guy wanted at his catering, at his event, what catering he needed. And she would be writing, the proposal as he goes. Now, in the meantime, she's actually rung a motorbike courier in the city as well, and they're already en route. So by the time he puts the phone down, the proposal is then given to the motorbike courier outside the office, and that motorbike is then across London delivering that proposal in hand. And he said, on average, he said within 10 minutes, that person would be back on the phone saying let's go for it. Like, that was incredible. And then they'd meet that afternoon and they'd close the deal. And then what happened was things started to speak. Not only was he incredibly good at what he did, but the service was very good. So he not only got better paying clients and obviously, more attraction, but he then got a load of referrals. And then what happened was, because he was so good, he started to attract high quality people. And then the high quality people then told their friends. And then eventually throughout the chain, he then ended up on a contract with the government, because he literally built that. But he built that whole business going into a city with 0 clients, thinking, I'm going to do things differently. But all he focused on was being shit hot at what he did and over delivering and doing stuff differently to every other company in that area. And he built it. And it's the same as, within his kind of first 2 to 3 years, he would over deliver all the time. Like he, you know, for example, if something went wrong, he would probably drive over to the event himself and sort it out. But again, as a byproduct, he kept people on, and then people kept on referring, and now he's got pretty much all of his clients as friends. And like the core foundation is he just, yes, I know, again, you know, same with you, Nicky, you said, you know, acquisition, we're always looking at, you know, what can we get in, sales, but it is so important to just serve as well and be the bestest, you know, sort of best server you can be, because they'll make you money. Well, not only will they make you money from, you know, they're paying you longer and paying you more across the year, but also if you're shithole what you do, they're going to pay, you know, they're going to refer their friends, you're going to get more clients that way. And it's like, you know, for example, one of the biggest things, and again, I completely get that we want to grow, we want to scale, we want to build a company. But in my, like, you know, this is how I see growing is like, let's say within the first 2 years, you over deliver as a coach. Okay. You over deliver, for example, you might do a monthly catch up call. Okay. You might do a 6-week review call, building that relationship, getting to understand your client. I know it is definitely not scalable. Okay. If you get to 80 clients, 60 clients even, right, you don't want to be doing 60 calls a month or whatever. Okay. So at that point, you don't ever sacrifice, in my opinion, your service. That's when you would go, right, I need to get someone else on board so I can keep this level of service. Because as soon as you drop the level of service, you will see things drop in terms of, you know, your LTV go down, the churn rate get higher. And then what happens? You end up back in that spiral of trying to chase sales. But the actual, it's like Elliot said, the best thing you can do is fix churn and be better at what you do, deliver a better service, go above and beyond, right? It will lead to A, better clients, but also B, better results. And what happens once you get better results with clients? You get more clients off the back of it anyway. So, you know, don't be afraid. Like, don't, in my opinion, don't try and cut like corners of trying to coach people at scale and all of this. Like, just be good at what you do and you'll continue to grow forever. And yeah, that's the core. And I know we can work out, so you've got to be, you know, kind of sensible about it. You know, if your rate per hour and value per hour like goes down to like £5 or £8, then obviously that's when you need to look at things. But to be honest, if you're a brand new business and your value per hour goes down to £5 or £8 for the first 6 months, but it means your value per hour after 6 months will be 20, 30, 40, 50, it's well worth it. But it's just, again, if you look at your numbers and look at where you're at in your business, you'll then be able to decide what path you need to take. But the core of that message was just like, it blew my mind, because I was like, it's such a great story of like how just being good at what you do. Yes, in the end, he got his sales and he got his marketing in, but then again, he never lost clients because he was so good at what he did, because it's built off the principles.
One big mindset shift that I see that separates people that have great LTV and small churn rates is long-term thinkers versus short-term thinkers. So people that are willing to think on a long time horizon, i.e. they have a business that they're in because they're in it for the long run and they're not in it just to extract as much cash short term, will be much more consumer centric than they will be cash centric. And the difference there is someone working on a long time horizon, like for example, you become a coach or you run a business with the intention of really serving and loving what you do, will make you act in a way and build a business that is actually far more for the customer than it is just for you extracting. And what they found out with studies is people that give tend to receive a hell of a lot more. And that's not just from some hooky pooky thing. They call it the surface area of luck. The more you give, the larger the surface area of luck you have, which then gives you more doors and opportunities. And in kind with customers and everything else, what will happen is you'll be thinking about how much you can give your customer and in turn build a better business, better rapport, because you're not trying to extract money out of them short term. And this is why you see a lot of businesses pop up and fail. And sometimes they can make a lot of money very quickly, but the churn rate's high and they're never around for very long. So if you think and you are truly in a business that you love and you're doing what you want to do, and you think about the customer as opposed to the cash, it will ultimately earn you a hell of a lot more, and in my opinion, create a lot more fulfillment. So that in itself will solve a lot of the churn rate issues, just becoming more consumer centric and cash centric. And this leads on to, obviously, I'm very proud of what we've done with Limitless as we are as a team. And that's something we've been really trying to work on. That's what, you know, all the things we've been doing. So that's because I see, and the team sees, Limitless as something that's going to be an institution around, and we talk about it in 50 years time, not a year's time or 2 years down the line. And it's like, okay, how much impact can we give? How much can we help? What can we be doing? How much more can we be doing? And in turn, LTV has increased drastically, customer satisfaction increased drastically, sales themselves have actually increased as well. So it all has this really, as James said, a real nice snowball effect. But I'll let Josh talk a little bit about it as well, about what we've been doing. And obviously, we're very proud of what we're doing. We like to lead by example. We're by no means perfect, but it's certainly something that we've been thinking on a longer time horizon, which I think for us has been a huge shift, and something I've noted in just the fulfillment and happiness of customers.
Yeah, 100%. It's like that James's story that he just told there. That's the fantastic example. And a lot of people get caught up, and we've seen this. A lot of people get caught up in, because they're not being directly paid from exactly what they do. It's like this call. We're not being directly paid for it from you guys. Like the DM Power Hour, we're not being paid by that. Like all of the motivational call, the assets, the university, like we don't get paid directly from that, but it makes you guys happier and it helps you guys as much as possible. So quite often we've got to remove that mindset of, oh, I'm doing this for free, but it's going to increase the churn rate, like we've actually mentioned during the start of this call. If it increases the churn rate, it gives us a massive return on investment long term, having that long term thinking. So if we're going into certain situations with the mindset of, do you know what, I just want to be the best in the fucking world at what I do, naturally you'll get paid a hell of a lot more as a byproduct by just having that mindset. So it's really, really important. And yeah, we're trying to lead by example with the amount of value that we're giving to you guys. I mean, even the course that we put out the other day, that took a lot of time, took a lot of planning, but it's going to benefit you all. If it benefits you all, it helps you guys grow, you stay a lot longer, our churn rate drops. Perfect example. So if you're having that mindset when you're going into certain situations within your business, when it's adding value or looking to bolt on something to your service, remove that mindset of wanting to get paid from it directly, because it's just going to hinder you moving forward.
Yeah, and there's obviously little things you can add in, like contracts and minimum expectations of sign-ups and things like that. There's little strategies. But I think that the basis of this call was like, just offer a good fucking service and give a shit about your customers and expect to be around in a good few years. Because frankly, if you're in this just to extract as much cash as you possibly can from your clients, you don't really have any real business being a business owner. That's not a business owner, that's more of a cash machine. Whereas like just having that long-term mindset and really caring and really giving. I actually heard a really interesting, like I said, just as a side note, no, it's not necessarily about churn, but that thing that I said about earlier, there was a game theory, which is game theory is like a famous economist came up with it. It was like, you have two scenarios and there's takers, matchers and givers. And basically they played out a load of situations in that someone like that's on the 1 out of 10 would be someone that takes, and someone that's on a 10 out of 10 would be a giver, always gives. And basically they run loads of scenarios with different people on that spectrum, and they found that people that were 8 out of 10 on the giving end did vastly better in life just because of the amount of doors that open. Like I said, they call it the surface area of luck. That's something that came from Silicon Valley, but it opens up more doors, and the way people treat you and the more you get offered because you give more will drastically increase. Scientifically, they've proven this to be a fact, how much you get back. So by giving more, you will receive more. And I've always thought that to be true, but I never actually saw a scientific study behind it where they actually ran this in a systemized model and it works. Givers, people giving value. Gary Vee always preaches this: give, 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 and then ask. Like, the more you can give, the more you'll receive. And if you think of your business that way, how much more can I give? How much more can I provide? That'll ultimately fix any churn rate you possibly have. Or fix your sales. Yes, sales and acquisition, and you can play on top of that. But you'll be overwhelmed with good referrals. You'll probably struggle with capacity and be solving problems more like, okay, how can I handle this many more clients coming on because I'm not losing any? And then sales and acquisition becomes less of a problem, because that's always the hardest thing to solve. And ironically, when you fix the back end, the sales and acquisition becomes easier. People think about it the wrong way around. So just food for thought. So like I said, it'd be nice. I thought I'd show it to you mathematically and then give you some theoretical take homes. But What was everyone's thoughts on that? Any questions? Any other questions while we're here? Bit of a small group, so pick a brains.
We've
No.
delivered too many group calls.
Sick of us. We're giving too much value. That's the problem. I'm increasing my service area of luck. That's the idea. Oh, I think that was quite a tidy little call. I've probably bored you to death with the math. But I promise I won't do too much more of that. But I just think it's important, like, just know those numbers and have them to hand. And you can sit down with your mentors as well and talk those through and work on getting those things down and actually just systematically look at those over time.
I don't have a question, but it was good to see like the math side of it, because you don't really focus on that as much. Well, you do obviously the money you get, but not the maths that you've just.
No, like a lot of people don't look at the basic fundamentals. And to be honest, I deal with a lot of big businesses as well, and a lot of them don't even know those basic answers. And the thing is, while your business is growing, you can kind of hide that because your sales are growing higher than your churn, and then you're always slightly profitable. But then, literally, you make a few small tweaks to for fulfillment and your churn, and then all of a sudden, you can triple your revenue with the same amount of work. And actually, it's a hell of a lot easier because you've got happier customers. So then your customer service then is much easier, and everything just clicks into place. But yeah, like I said, it's really nice to just see it on a simple, basic numbers, and it's really not that difficult to figure out these things and just keep an eye on them. And even, oh, by the way, guys, if you use Stripe, it'll actually give you on your dashboard churn rates and all of your numbers anyway. So you don't even have to work it out if you're using Stripe exclusively, just an FYI.
Oh, I've just sat there and done the maths on mine.
No, it's good. You should do it anyway, but it's nice. You should be able to work that out. Because like I said, if I sit down in the business and if I get invited to a coffee and someone's talking about their business, or like I'm looking to invest in something, I'll quickly run through those numbers with them. And I'll quickly like knock that out. But it's super helpful to know.
It really helps to understand, like, you know, when you're looking at an illustration of like, at what point do I need to bring other team members in as well? Because if I know my capacity and I know my targets for the year, whilst it's always, like you've said today, massively resonates, it's always about caring for the clients, like genuinely making sure that shit works for them, massive amounts of value. But that does come down to understanding what the numbers are telling you, whether that's happening or not. Mm-hmm. So then when I'm sat and looking at it and going, right, if the business is going to cap out at 20 grand, then if I want to push that and create a better service for more clients, I need another team member. Mm-hmm. And it helps me understand at what points I need to do that. So it just makes, like, you know, like when you've got prep and you're like, right, I know where I need to be on certain weeks and I know what I need to look like and what my expectations are. It's the same thing. And that's just helped really make that so clear. So thank you.
Yeah, those numbers will give you trajectory as well. Like you say, you know where you're heading. And like a lot of people think they're actually climbing but they're actually peaked. And this is what I said, or they might actually be declining. Whereas like it just gives you that, like you say, it gives you that path. And then you can make the adjustments necessary. And it is, as we always say, is figuring out things that you should be focusing on day to day that are important in your business, and this can give you those answers, hopefully. So I hope it will help, guys.
Thank you very much.
Always a pleasure, James.
I appreciate it. Learning lots.
Legends.